Hello everyone, we're going to walk through some scenarios of the cube in space. This is a cardboard box, obviously. We'll do a 1 point in different positions and then a 2 point. And also be able to kind of show you this idea about transparency of the image, which is important, or of the form, I should say, or in the structure of the form. So even though we can only see two sides of this cardboard box, there's 6 sides, right? So in the drawing of the cubes, I want you to kind of be aware of that so that you can kind of attach other cubes to cubes, knowing where the back sides are, etc. So this is a 1 point scenario. See where those lines meet? As I'm looking down the driveway here. That is where the vanishing point is. So all you need to do to find a vanishing point in a 1 point scheme, sidewalk, whatever the case may be, if the piece of architecture is consistent, and there's the bottom of the sill of the house. No, sorry about the phone there. So that, because everything's parallel with each other, they all, those edges, those parallel edges, all conform to that vanishing point. So in a 1 point scheme, and we know this is 1 point because see that line at the bottom of the driveway, bottom of the video screen? It's parallel to the bottom of the video screen, right? That crack in the driveway. So that whole scheme is confronting us straight on, right? So where those meet is the vanishing point. Now what I'm doing is I'm placing a horizon line through that vanishing point. And that gives me my eye level relative to everything else. So all of a sudden I'm able to kind of see my eye level in the distance relative to other things, right? And I'm kind of squinched down when I, bent over when I took the picture of this box. So you can see my head level over there next to the mailbox, kind of in a bent position, right? A little lower than natural standing. So if this driveway were to go forever, it would just go right across those yards and kind of, kind of fill in. I could fill that in and it would just kind of go till it disappeared, right? So essentially, if this was a flat desert, that generally speaking, that horizon line would be where the land and sky would come together, as we talked about. Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm taking the edges of the box and projecting to that vanishing point because the box is perfectly lined up with everything. So there's the top plane of the box. Now, if we were to measure this, that top plane of the box is probably longer than the front of the box, but because of foreshortenings we talked about, it is squished down, right? So if we were to draw this, we'd have to measure the two and relate them. So I have two sides of the box drawn, right? Front and the top. Now let's draw the other sides without seeing them. So I'm going to take the corners, the two front bottom corners, and project those back to the vanishing point. Now we have to create the back side of the box. So I'll drop verticals. All verticals are just that, absolutely vertical. So you can see on the right side, that blue line had just dropped down there. When that meets the other one, that gives me the back right corner of the bottom of the box. And I did that on the left, and then if I do everything right, I can stretch a blue line straight across. Now just so happens that lines up with the tape seam on the front. But there is the transparent 1 point box. And I take, hold on, that's the other scenario. I'm going to remove the photograph here, if I can do it right. There it is. So, see that clicking back and forth? So the drawings you guys are going to make in terms of making up cubes and forms, are, even though they're made up, they're not, disassociated from what happens in real life, right? So here's like a cube in space that conforms to a 1 point scheme. Just kind of gently erasing away the, they call those lines of projection, or I call them lines of projection to the vanishing point. And there you can see a transparent 1-point box, right? 1-point perspective cube or box, however you want to define it. Bottom, top, front, back, and 2 sides, right? And the 2 sides are very foreshortened, of course, right? Clicking back and forth between the 2. So I can kind of understand where the back side of that box is without even seeing it, if I really understand. And that'll help you when you draw, you know. You'll be able to see things, and that's why it's really nice to be able to you know, kind of process this whole thing, you know, drawing generally from life, because it really allows you to see and feel what's going on in terms of a whole dimensionality of things, right, rather than just the flat surface. So what I've done here is just move the box to the right. Now we see 3 sides of the box, right? You can only see of an opaque form, an opaque box, 3 sides at any given time. You can see 2 like we did in the last scenario. You could see 1 too if it was like a huge box, you know, and it kind of covered the whole scene, you know, even the vanishing point, you just see the big front side of it, right? So here I'm projecting, again, lines into where they converge. That's the vanishing point, so I know I can kind of line my horizon line up there. So that's my eye level relative to everything in the scene. So, you know, if I want to know where my eye level is relative to the house over here on the left-hand side, it's that middle set of you know, shingles, you know, cedar shingles there. So now I'm just projecting from all 4 corners. So I just projected from the right corner through the box, right, and into infinity. Now I'm going to build that box just by kind of going over the edges, around, you know, kind of following those edges with the horizontals and verticals. In a 1-point scheme, the edges of the box that are not moving away from you, the horizontal edges, are always just absolutely horizontal on your drawing. So make sure they're parallel to the top and bottom of the drawing. The horizontal lines that do move away from you have to go to that vanishing point. And then all vertical lines are just that, vertical. So there's 3 scenarios that you need to think about in terms of the types of lines you're making. Absolute horizontal that aren't moving away from you, vertical, and then horizontal lines that are moving away from you, which go to the vanishing point. So now just kind of gently erasing away the projection lines. And then you see there a 1-point box, but you see 3 sides. This time the box is moved to the right. The vanishing point really hasn't moved, right? I just slid the box over to the right so I see the left side of it. So I'm going to denote the planes. There's the big front plane. There's the left plane and top plane. See that? Those are the ones I see. Then there's 3 other ones on the other side that I don't see. And then what I do, and I'll have you guys do when you do your drawings, you'll see it in the other videos, is to gently erase away as well the lines you wouldn't see if this box was opaque. But I do want to see that you understand that these cubes you're going to build have 6 sides, okay? 6 planes. Now we're in a 2-point scheme. The environment hasn't changed. That's still 1 point. So what I can do here is still find that vanishing point by projecting those back, and where they cross will give me you know, the vanishing point, i.e. the horizon line again. In a if you were to observe this in real life, if you didn't have the advantage of like having the photograph of it, right, you'd have to approximate all these angles and apply them to your drawing for the most part, particularly the 2-point, you know, the angles in the box as it sits there in the 2-point scheme. So I showed you that with the pencil, right? How to kind of tip that pencil to figure out what the angles of things are. It's very, very difficult to memorize an angle. So there's the, there's the one, letting you know it's still a 1-point scheme with the driveway, right? Because that line's still generally parallel to the bottom of the image. So the driveway is still a 1-point scheme. The box, however, because I tipped it, no plane is parallel to my body anymore, right? So those edges, I still would trace those out, and they would go all the way off of the edge of the photograph and converge. They will converge if everything's set up properly. They'll converge at a point that exists on that horizon line, but it's way off the edge of the paper. So the planes that go the opposite direction, we'll see in a second. So now I'm just popping in the verticals. So I've drawn in the left plane, you can see that. Those, the ones that go in the opposite direction, will also go way off in this scenario, the edge of the paper, but they too will converge at a point that is on that horizon line, but it's way off the edge of the paper. So you can see how complex this gets when you try to draw things in a real case scenario. So there's a point on the horizon line, but it's way off the edge. That's why I kind of drew that arrow there. So there's one on both sides, right? i.e. 2-point perspective. So in this scenario, there's no edge or plane of the box that's parallel to my body anymore, right? They're going off in different directions. But I'm going to make this into a transparent cube as well. So we get essentially right now 3 points on the horizon line, right? The 1 point that conforms to the driveway, and then the 2 points that conform to the box that's turned skewed to our body. Now in this, the way I have the box now, the back corner kind of lines up with the front corner. So sometimes that'll happen. So the edge that would be the back corner, the vertical edge that describes the back corner of the two planes, the two planes we can't see, lines right up with the front corner. So it kind of sneaks in behind it. So you get this kind of weird thing happening. I tried to avoid that in my in the other drawings I did, as the you'll see with the other two videos, particularly the 2-point scheme. So you got to kind of be aware of that. If you find that the back edge is lining up with the front edge, what you do is you just lengthen one side, and then that brings that edge out from behind the other one. So you have to redraw a little bit there. So you can see that front corner of the box where the two front planes come together is hiding the back corner as it drops down behind it. Okay, so we still have, there's 1 plane, 2 planes, 3 planes, 4 in the back, 5 in the back, and then the bottom. So there's 6 planes. And I think, yeah, so there we pop that back in again. So you could imagine you could have a whole bunch of boxes turned in different directions from one another. You'd have a corresponding 2 points along that horizon plane for every box, because they're not parallel to each other. Or if you did a series of boxes and they're all lined up perfectly, but in 2-point perspective, skewed to your body, then they'd all go to the same vanishing point, and that'll be the scenario you'll be doing in the 2-point made-up drawing. They'll just be 2 points on the horizon line, and all the cubes you draw will go to that. And the 1-point scheme, of course, we'll just have that 1 point. You can draw a whole bunch of different ones for that. So just kind of, I think I'm reviewing here. So there's 1 plane, or that's the front plane there, yeah. So you can kind of see the 2 different versions there, right? There's where I had the box move to the right. There's where it's in 2-point scheme, right? But the driveway really hasn't changed. That's still 1-point perspective. So this is all because of geometry, right? So there would be no, as I said, 1-point perspective wouldn't exist without this idea of parallel edges, parallel planes, all that sort of stuff. So this, in a world without architecture, we wouldn't need linear perspective, which is what this is. When you have vanishing points, called linear perspective. And I think that's about it. So just a way to kind of give you a real world scenario for the made up drawing that you'll be doing. Okay, thank you.